So I have seen Superman twice now. I went and saw it as the early Prime preview on Tuesday, and I went and saw it yesterday. Superman was probably the best Superman movie I've ever seen, while simultaneously having the second worst Superman of all time. Dean Cain was definitely worse. My biggest hesitation for this movie was the reboot factor. I understand the reboot, I really do, but then Peacemaker was in it, so it's not really a reboot, it's more of a James is keeping his stuff and getting rid of the things he doesn't want to keep. I still feel this way about it. I don't really trust WB to stay out of the way. Warner Brothers has proven that they get impatient or they freak out if something doesn't perform the way that they want it to, and they get involved, and I don't trust that to change. I know that right now they're saying that this is James Gunn's baby and he's in charge, but I just don't trust them to stay out of the way. I just don't. Not to mention, there's a Batman roaming around that apparently isn't part of this universe. There's a Joker roaming around that isn't part of either universe. And then there's the post-credit scene from Peacemaker Season 1 that had Ezra Miller and Jason Momoa in it, but now they're not part of it, or at least Ezra Miller isn't part of it, and Jason Momoa isn't Aquaman anymore. Now he's Lobo, which is who he should have been in the first place, by the way. You see, this is what I'm talking about. It makes it so hard to invest in the movie, the universe, and any of the character. I know that my review is a little bit all over the place. I have positives and negatives, but I'm just going to kind of go through them, not really in any particular order, just these are my thoughts, and I just kind of wrote them down. This was the best movie, Lois Lane, yet I do wish that they had used Tyler Hoechlin and Bitsy Tulloch from Superman and Lois, as I think that was the pinnacle of both Superman and Lois casting. The James Gunn humor did exactly what I expected in this movie. It didn't outright ruin it, but it was distracting and a bit of a letdown. The James Gunn humor was really prominent with the Guy Gardner scenes. But there were a couple of James Gunn action scenes too, but I did like those. To me, Mr. Terrific was the highlight of the movie. There was too much profanity for a Superman movie. Once or twice, sure, but the word shit was used entirely too much. Again, it's a Superman movie. It's a movie that kids are supposed to be able to go to, and they just used it too much. They used profanity too much. Now, having said that, I just said that Mr. Terrific was the highlight of the movie, and one of my favorite scenes was literally him saying, "I'm goddamn Mr. Terrific." So, but that's me. I'm an adult man. It doesn't bother me. And maybe if that and maybe like one or two other had been in there, it would have been fine. But it's just, like I said, it was just a little too much. Hot Girl was a little bit undercooked to me, but it wasn't her movie, and I'm actually hopeful. I do know that the next project is either going to be Supergirl or it's going to be the Lanterns TV show. I'm not sure which comes next. I haven't been paying a whole lot of attention to DC because, as I said before, I'm not really trusting Warner Brothers to stay out of the way, so I don't want to get too invested and then just have to start over again. Hopefully I'm wrong. I would love to be wrong. But until I can trust that I am, I'm kind of keeping my distance and just viewing things as they come out, enjoying them as they come out, and going from there. I don't really have any other way to be about all this. But having said that, the one thing that I'm hoping for, because Hot Girl was in the Justice Gang with Guy Gardner, Green Lantern, I'm really hopeful that she'll be in the Lanterns TV show. Actually, now that I think about it, I think Peacemaker might be next. Peacemaker Season 2. But anyway, I'm really hopeful that maybe she'll be in the Lanterns TV show and that they'll actually explore her relationship with Jon Stewart in that. That could be a lot of fun, I think, especially if Carter Hall ends up coming back and it becomes a triangle type situation. Not every triangle is the best, but the Hot Girl and Jon Stewart and Carter Hall triangle is one of the more interesting ones, especially in comic book history. One of my very favorite things was the homage to the original John Williams score, especially the first few seconds of the movie, or the intro, or whatever you want to call it. I loved that so much. It brought chills. It brought tears to my eyes. That is one of the biggest complaints of the Zack Snyder universe. Was it's not so much that they changed the score, because I understand changing the score, even though the Superman theme song was so iconic, but I can understand needing to change it. The fact that they changed it to a very forgettable score for Superman was a problem, but I love that they fixed that here, where they used some of the John Williams while also making a new score for it. I think that was dead on. It was great. Also, loved Crypto. Crypto was awesome. If I had to guess, I know that part of the love for the Rocket Raccoon storyline in the Guardians of the Galaxy, especially part 3, was in part based on James Gunn's dog that he lost, and it's just sort of therapeutic for him, and I like that a lot. I absolutely felt like Crypto was literally James Gunn's therapy for losing his puppers, and I can completely understand that. Crypto was incredible. Jimmy Olsen was hot? What? I don't quite understand that. He was a ladies' man, or all the women wanted him anyway. I guess. I guess. It is what it is. A couple of things I didn't like necessarily. The thing I disliked the most was the storyline of Jor-El and Laura being bad guys, or being the message, that the part of the message that was destroyed and ended up coming out later. The Superman should basically subjugate humankind, and I did not like that. I didn't like it at all. I understand that it might be based in comics, but it was shit. It shouldn't have been used. I hated it. Hated it. David Cornsweet was just not good as Superman. When he used his deep voice, he was too loud, but he didn't always use it. It was like, for example, when Christopher Reeve was Clark, he used one voice. When he was Superman, he used one voice, but he didn't drop into a lower register and it be louder than everyone around him. I don't know how to explain what I'm trying to say, but I didn't like that. I didn't really enjoy Cornsweet's Superman super much. I did, however, really like at the end his scene with Lex, when Lex was calling him an alien and he kind of went off on him. That was probably the best that he was in the movie. And he had his moments. I'm not saying he was terrible. By any means, I'm not saying he was terrible. I don't know. The obviously a lot of us really enjoyed Henry Cavill as Superman. I'm not going to compare per se, but basically what I'm trying to say is, when you've got Christopher Reeves, when you've got Henry Cavill, when you got Tyler Hoechlin, when you've got Tom Welling, and even Brandon Routh, I really enjoyed all of them as Superman. And so Cornsweet has a very, very steep hill to climb. He still has time to win me over. I don't know this movie. I didn't think, I thought that he was probably the weakest actor in the movie outside of Ma and Pa Kent. On the complete opposite side of that, Nicholas Hoult absolutely surprised me. I really enjoyed his take on Lex. I thought that he was incredible. Now, him going to Michael Rosenbaum and getting advice from him was important, I think. I think that that's why it was so good. But yeah, Nicholas Hoult really surprised me. I thought that he was incredible. Metamorpho was actually really visually stunning, and I enjoyed the actor. I actually really liked Anthony Carradine as Victor Zsasz in Gotham. I thought that he was actually probably, him and Alfred were the two best characters in the show Gotham. So I was a little iffy about whether or not I wanted him to be a different character instead of Zsasz, because I thought he was so good as Zsasz, but man, he really killed it as Metamorpho. The cage scene was a little silly, I guess, but otherwise I thought he was awesome. Guy Gardner sucked, but I think he was supposed to. I loved the Hall of Justice, but I really didn't like the humor from Nathan Fillion. And it's not Nathan Fillion. I think what it was Nathan Fillion made it obvious that it was the James Gunn humor. That was the part that I was scared of, and that's when it happened. His delivery was good. I just felt like it was out of place in a Superman movie, especially the scene in the Hall of Justice that I mentioned a moment ago. Now, I realize this review is a little all over the place, but my feelings about it were all over the place. As I said, I think this was the best Superman movie ever made, and I don't say that lightly. I loved the Christopher Reeve Superman, but in all honesty, the first movie was dated, and the resolution at the end was terrible. Superman 2 was absolutely the best up to this point, but it was flawed too. A product of the time more than anything. Personally, I loved Superman Returns, but even I'll admit that it was lacking. Aside from the plane scene and the finale, it had a terrible balance of story and action. Same for Man of Steel. The death of Jonathan Kent was dumb. Kevin Costner is the second most boring actor ever, so that was kind of to be expected. The action scenes were very good, but the first act into the battle in Smallville was nap time. I fell asleep. And I've seen it said that the tone was very different to the tone of the trailer, and I can see that. I only watch the first 2 trailers for any movie, the teaser and the official trailer. That's all I ever watch. I hate watching more than that because, in my opinion, they give too much of the movie away. So I skipped a lot of the trailers, but even then, it was a different tone. I attribute that to the James Gunn humor element I mentioned before more than anything, really. In closing, this was a good movie, a good action movie, and a really good superhero movie. I didn't like Corn Sweat as Superman personally, but Superman is a hard character to get right and make entertaining. I just felt like the Superman part of the Superman movie was the most lacking. The rest of the movie, though, was terrific, just like the best character in the movie. If I had to put a number to this, I would probably give it like a 7.5 out of 10. It was definitely better than average. It was very good. Just, it wasn't quite an 8 for me, and it wasn't nearly as bad as a 7, so I'll give it a 7.5, and that's my review for Superman. And now I'll be giving my review for the Ironheart TV series on Disney+. I really enjoyed Ironheart. I was really upset with all the hate it was getting. It was unwarranted, it was stupid, and it was... I mean, there's no other way to say it except to say that people just hate things to hate them when there's anything going on outside of white men. It feels like every movie that has a woman at the front of it is hated on. It feels like every movie that has a person of color is hated on. It feels like anything that's outside of the norm is just shit on immediately, and I can't stand that. So I was really upset. I was really enjoying Ironheart until the final scene. And I guess it's comic accurate for her to make a deal with Mephisto, but I just didn't like it. I really liked Riri. I loved her family, Natalie, Xavier, her mom, and I liked Zelma a lot. I could watch an entire series about her. Anthony Ramos was good most of the time. I felt like they used a couple of bad takes in places, but he was a really good villain. I've never been a fan of Sacha Baron Cohen, but I actually did think he was pretty good as Mephisto. I think that it's silly that this was his debut and not something like Ghost Rider or even Doctor Strange, but it does make sense story-wise in regards to the Hood. But I still don't like that Riri made a deal with him. Maybe she made a deal with him? It was entirely too ambiguous, to be honest. I was ready to rate this a 7 out of 10 until the end. Then, with the ending, it literally dropped to a 5, so I'll average it out and give it a 6. I wanted it to be so much better. And it wasn't the worst thing that Marvel TV has ever put out, regardless of what people want to say. It was down there because of the ending and because of like I said, there was just a couple of times that they used what I'm guessing was just a really bad take with the acting, the directing. And I'm surprised by that considering that Ryan Coogler was an executive producer. But, there's no denying that it was lacking. It was definitely lacking, and the Mephisto thing at the end really killed it. It was not as bad as Secret Invasion. Nothing has been as bad as Secret Invasion. However, I'd probably have to put this and Moon Knight probably tied for just above. Now, if I had to rate Secret Invasion, I'd probably honestly give it a 3, just because the quality just started fairly low and just went down and down and down, and then I don't know. And Moon Knight was okay, but the CGI giant Khonshu battle at the end was just terrible. But the acting from Oscar Isaac was incredible, so that honestly really saved that series. But this isn't about those shows. This was about Ironheart, and I wanted it to be better. I want to see Ironheart in more things. I would love it if she... And let's be honest, I don't know why we haven't gotten a Young Avengers yet with all the Young Avengers that they've introduced, but we haven't. And it's starting to get to the point to where by the time they do, Kate Bishop's going to be like 64. So let's put out a Young Avengers movie or show or something. Let's have Kamala Khan and Kate Bishop and, Wiccan and Ironheart and all these characters finally be in something together. We've introduced all these characters. I think that that's probably the one complaint about the MCU lately that I can get on board with, is stop introducing all these characters and then going nowhere with them. Enough with that. You've got to do better. You can't just continue to rest on the first 3 phases, especially phase 3 of the MCU. You've got to stop teasing things that are way down the line or may never even happen, and just get your shit together and put something out that we want to see, like the Champions or Young Avengers show, whatever it is you're going to do. Please. And that was my reviews for Superman and Ironheart. As always, I'm your host, Surprise. Until next time, have a good one.